The morning sun blazed across the endless desert of Kalahari expanse. Sand dunes rolled like golden waves toward the horizon. The surface looked empty and lifeless, but deep beneath the burning sands, something magnificent existed in secret, far. Below the desert floor, massive crystal caves stretched for miles. The walls glowed with soft blue light that came from ancient magic. Water flowed through channels carved into the rock. Gardens of strange plants grew in the magical light. This was the home of the Sunfire Dragon clan. Elder Ryuk rested on a throne. Made of pure crystal, his golden scales caught the blue light and threw it back in rainbow colors. He was enormous, even for a dragon. His head alone was the size of a small building. His eyes held the wisdom of 3,000 years. Those eyes had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars being born and dying. Rook was thinking about the old laws, the laws that kept his people hidden from the world above. These laws had protected the dragons for countless years. No surface dweller knew they existed. This was how it had always been. This was how it should always be. A sound of claws on crystal made him open his eyes. His daughter Nara walked into the great chamber. Her scales were copper-colored and seemed to hold fire inside them. She was young by dragon standards, only 400 years old. But she had the heart of a warrior. Nara bowed her head to show. "Respect, father, I need to speak with you." Ryuk looked at his daughter with tired eyes. He knew what she wanted to talk about. For months now, she had been watching the surface world through the scrying pools. The magical pools showed them what happened far away. Nara spent too much time watching the humans fight their war. "You wanted to talk about the humans again," Rook said. His voice was deep like distant thunder. "Yes, father. They are losing the war. The void swarm is destroying everything. Soon they will all be dead." Rook closed his eyes. "That is not our concern, daughter. We made our choice long ago. We stay hidden. We stay safe. The surface world and its problems do not touch us." But Nara did not give up easily. "Father, you should see how they fight. They know they cannot win. Their weapons barely scratch the void creatures. Their ships are being destroyed every day, yet they keep fighting. They protect their young, they save their wounded. They never give up, even when death is certain." The old dragon opened one golden. Courage alone does not win wars, Nara. We learned this lesson long ago. Power must be used wisely. Hidden power is safe power." Nara walked closer to her father. Her copper scales began to glow brighter as her emotions grew stronger. "But what good is power if we never use it to help others? What good is safety if we watch good beings die when we could save them?" "Enough," Rook said firmly. "The laws exist for good reasons. Long ago, we tried to help surface dwellers. We shared our wisdom, we used our power to protect them. And what happened? They feared us. They hunted us. They tried to steal our magic and use it for war. We barely survived. That is why we hide now." Nara looked down at the crystal floor. She had heard this story many times, but she did not think all surface dwellers were the same. The humans she watched in the scrying pools were different. They fought to protect, not to conquer. They helped their enemies when they were wounded. They showed mercy even in war. "The humans are different, father," she said quietly. "All surface dwellers say they are different," Rook replied. "Until they are not." In another part of the Crystal City, young dragons gathered around a scrying pool. Deho, whose scales were silver like moonlight, pointed at the magical water. Images of space battles appeared in the pool. Human ships, small and fragile, fought against the massive bioships of the Void Swarm. "Look at that," Deho said to his friend Sola. Her scales were green like deep forest leaves. "The humans just saved a ship full of civilians. Their own ship was badly damaged, but they still helped others escape." Sola nodded. "I have been watching them too. They are strange creatures, so small and weak, but they have something inside them that even we dragons rarely show." "What do you mean?" asked another young dragon named Wook. His scales were brown like rich earth. "They have hope," Sola said simply. "Even when everything looks impossible, they keep hoping." They keep trying. They believe tomorrow can be better than today. The young dragons watched as another battle played out in the scrying pool. A human commander stayed behind to fight a rear guard action. His ship was destroyed, but his sacrifice let hundreds of others escape. The dragons felt something stir in their hearts, something they had not felt for a very long time. Meanwhile, in the healing chambers, an old female dragon named Bora tended to sick dragons. She was known for her gentle heart and her skill with healing magic. She too had been watching the humans through the scrying pools. What she saw there troubled her deeply. Bora had seen human medics run into battle to save wounded enemies. She had watched human doctors work for days without rest to save lives. She had seen human parents give their lives to protect their children. These were not the actions of evil beings. These were the actions of people with good hearts. As the day passed, more dragons began to talk quietly about the humans. The younger dragons especially felt drawn to help. They admired human courage. They respected human determination. But the old laws were strong. Elder Rook had made his decision clear. That evening, Nara stood alone in the highest chamber of the Crystal City. Through a shaft that led to the surface, she could see the first stars appearing in the desert sky. She knew that far above those stars, humans were fighting and dying. They were losing a war against creatures that wanted to destroy all life. In the galaxy. Her heart ached with the need to help. Her dragon fire burned hot inside her, wanting to be used for something good. But she was bound by law and duty to stay hidden. As she watched the stars, Nara made a silent promise. If the humans ever called for help, if they ever truly needed aid, she would find a way to answer. Even if it meant breaking the ancient laws. Even if it meant losing everything she had ever known. The desert wind howled across the sands above, carrying with it the distant echoes of war among the stars. Captain Minho crouched behind a broken piece of concrete and wiped sweat from his face. The desert planet Zarian Prime was burning around him. Black smoke rose from destroyed buildings. The air smelled like melted metal and death. His uniform was torn and dirty. Blood from a small cut on his forehead had dried in the desert heat. 3 months ago, Minho had commanded 5,000 soldiers in the 47th Human Defense Corps. Now, only 300 remained alive. They were trapped in the ruins of an old mining colony. Around them, as far as anyone could see, the Void Swarm had built their hives. The hives looked like giant mushrooms made of black metal and living flesh. They pulsed with sick green light. Strange sounds came from inside them, clicking noises, wet sliding sounds. The noise of thousands of creatures getting ready for war. Lieutenant Yuna crawled up beside Minho. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight knot. Her face was covered in dust, but her eyes were still sharp and intelligent. She carried a data pad that showed their situation. The news was not good. "Sir, we have ammunition for maybe 2 more days," she said quietly. "Food for 1 day, water for 3 days if we are careful." Minho nodded. He had expected this. "Any word from command?" "No, sir. The last transmission was 5 days ago. I think we are the last unit still fighting on this planet." Minho looked out at the enemy hives. Green lights moved between them like deadly fireflies. Those were Void Swarm scouts. Soon they would attack again. His people would fight bravely. Some of them would die. Eventually all of them would die, but they would not surrender. "Sir," came a voice from behind them. Sergeant Jiho approached, carrying his communication equipment. He was young, maybe 25 years old. His hands shook slightly from exhaustion. But he never complained. "I found something strange in the old ruins." Yuna looked interested. "What kind of something?" Jiho pulled out a piece of stone covered in strange writing. "I was setting up the radio in the old temple area. This was carved into the wall. I took a rubbing of it." Yuna took the stone rubbing and studied it carefully. She was good with old languages. Before the war, she had studied archaeology at the University on New Sol. This is old human writing, very old. Maybe from the first colonies. She worked quietly for several minutes, comparing the writing to files on her datapad. Finally, her eyes grew wide with surprise. "Sir, you need to see this," she said to Minho. This talks about fire guardians, beings of great power who live beneath the desert sands. It says they helped humans long ago in a time of great danger. Minho looked at the writing. He could not read the old language, but he trusted Yuna completely. Fire guardians? The text is not complete, sir, but it mentions creatures that could breathe fire hot enough to melt stone. It says they were honorable beings who helped those who called for aid with pure hearts. Jiho scratched his head. You think there might really be something living under the desert? I do not know, Yuna said honestly. But sir, we have tried everything else. Our weapons cannot hurt the void creatures very much. Our ships are gone. Command is not answering. Maybe it is time to try something that sounds impossible. Minho was quiet for a long time. He looked at his remaining soldiers. They were good people, brave people. They had followed him into hell itself and never complained. They deserved better than dying alone on this forgotten planet. What exactly are you suggesting, Lieutenant? He asked. Yuna pointed to the communication. Equipment. We broadcast a message on all frequencies. Not just to other human units. To anyone or anything that might be listening, we ask for help. Command would call that crazy, Minho said. Command is not here, sir, Yuna replied quietly. Minho looked at Jiho. The young sergeant was nodding slowly. Sir, I can modify the radio. To broadcast on frequencies we never use, old frequencies. Strange frequencies. If something is out there listening, they will hear us. Another explosion shook the ground. Green light flashed in the distance. The void swarm was moving closer. Their time was running out fast. Minho made his decision. Do it. Prepare the broadcast. Jiho worked quickly with his equipment. He changed settings and adjusted frequencies. Soon the radio was ready to send a message farther and wider than ever before. What should I say, sir? Minho asked. Yuna thought carefully. Something honest. Something from the heart. If these fire guardians are real, and if they are honorable, they will respond to truth. Minho picked up the microphone. His hands were steady now. He took a deep breath and began to speak. This is Captain Minho of the 47th Human Defense Corps, broadcasting on all frequencies. We are the last human unit on Zarian Prime. We are surrounded by enemies we cannot defeat. Our weapons are almost gone. Our supplies are finished. We know we will probably die here. He paused and looked at his soldiers. They were gathering around to listen. Their faces showed hope mixed with desperation. But we will not surrender. Minho continued. We fight not because we can win, but because some things are worth fighting for. We protect the innocent. We help the weak. We never give up, even when everything looks hopeless. The radio crackled with static. Somewhere in that static, his words were traveling through space and time. To any beings of power who can hear this message, humanity calls for aid. We do not ask you to die for us. We do not demand your help. But if you believe in justice, if you believe in protecting life against those who would destroy it, then please consider standing with us. We cannot win alone, but we will not surrender. Minho released the microphone button. The message was sent. Now they could only wait and hope. Deep beneath the desert sands, in the crystal halls of the Dragon City, Elder Ryuk raised his great head. The scrying pools were glowing brighter than usual. Magic filled the air like electricity before a storm. Father? Nara said urgently. Did you hear that? Ryuk nodded slowly. Around them, other dragons were gathering. The message had reached them. A call for help from beings who faced certain death but would not give up their honor. They called for aid, young Deho said. His silver scales were glowing with excitement. They asked for allies, not masters, added Sola. Even old Bora was present. Her healing wisdom reflected in her ancient eyes. They fight to protect others, not to conquer? Elder Rook looked around at his people. The old laws said to stay hidden. But the old laws had been made in different times, against different enemies. The Void Swarm was not like the surface dwellers. Of long ago, the Void Swarm wanted to destroy everything. They would not stop with humans. Eventually they would find the dragons too, and these humans, these small, brave creatures, they were willing to die rather than surrender their principles. The Council will meet at once, Ryuk announced. His voice echoed through the crystal chambers like thunder from the deep earth. The Dragon Council chamber was filled with angry voices. Dragons of all ages had gathered around the great crystal table that glowed with inner light. Some scales shimmered gold like Elder Rook. Others were silver, copper, green, and brown. The magical light made their colors seem to dance and shift. Elder Rook sat at the head of the table. His massive form cast long shadows on the crystal walls. His golden eyes moved from one dragon to another as they argued about the human message. "The laws are clear," said an old dragon named Kan. His scales were dark blue like deep ocean water. "We do not interfere with surface world conflicts. We stay hidden, we stay safe." Young Daeho stood up quickly. His silver scales caught the light and threw it back in bright flashes. "But these humans are different. They fight to protect others, not to gain power. They ask for allies, not servants." "All surface dwellers claim to be different," Quan replied coldly. "Until they get what they want, then they show their true nature." Nara could not stay quiet any longer. She rose from her place and faced the council. Her copper scales began to glow brighter as her emotions grew stronger. "I have watched these humans for months," she said. "I have seen them risk their lives to save enemies who were trying to kill them. I have seen them share their last food with strangers. I have seen them choose death before dishonor. When did we dragons become so afraid that we would not help such beings?" The chamber fell silent. No one had ever called the dragons afraid before. Elder Rook's voice was like distant thunder. "Daughter, you forget yourself. We are not afraid. We are wise. We have learned hard lessons about trusting surface dwellers." "Then let me go," Nara said suddenly. "Let me answer their call. If I am wrong about them, I will face the consequences. Alone, the clan will remain safe." "No," Ryuk said firmly. "I will not lose my daughter to the foolish dreams of youth." But as the council continued to argue, the scrying pools began to flash with urgent light. Images appeared in the magical water. The void swarm was attacking the human position again. The creatures moved like a black tide across the desert. Their bioships cast dark shadows over the burning ruins. Captain Minho and his soldiers were fighting desperately. Their weapons flashed in the desert heat. Explosions lit up the smoke-filled air, but there were too many enemies. The humans were being pushed back into a smaller and smaller area. Nara watched the battle in the scrying pool. She saw Lieutenant Yuna help a wounded soldier to safety. She saw Sergeant Jiho stay at his radio post even as enemy fire came closer. She saw Captain Minho lead from the front, never asking his people to do something he would not do himself. "Look at them," Nara said to the council. "They are about to die, but they still protect each other. They still show mercy to prisoners. They still fight with honor." Young Sola nodded agreement. Her green scales rippled like leaves in wind. "The Void Swarm has no honor. They destroy everything they touch. If we let them win here, they will keep spreading. Eventually they will find us too." Elder Rook watched the battle in silence. He saw the truth in what his daughter said. These humans did fight differently than the surface dwellers of old. But the laws had protected his people for so long. How could he risk everything on the hope that these humans were different? In the scrying pool, a terrible thing happened. A group of void creatures broke through the human defensive line. They moved toward a building where human wounded were being treated. The creatures had no interest in mercy or prisoners. They would kill everyone inside. Captain Minho saw the danger. He could have stayed in his safe position. Instead, he grabbed his weapon and ran toward the building. Lieutenant Yuna and several other soldiers followed him. They knew it was probably a suicide mission. They went anyway. The fight was brief but fierce. Minho and his people managed to stop the void creatures, but at great cost. Half of them were badly wounded. Minho himself was bleeding from several injuries. Yet when the danger was over, the first thing he did was check on the wounded civilians. They had saved. Nara felt something break inside her chest. She could not watch these brave beings die while she sat safe in her crystal chamber. The old laws were important, but some things were more important than laws. I am going, she announced. Nara. No, Elder Rook commanded. I forbid it. But Nara was already moving toward the tunnel that led to the surface. Her copper scales blazed with inner fire. Father, you taught me that honor matters more than safety. You taught me that power without purpose is meaningless. I will not abandon honorable beings in their darkest hour. Several young dragons stood up to follow her. Deho, Sola, and others moved toward the tunnel entrance. If you leave this place, Elder Rook said sadly, you may never be allowed to return. Nara stopped and looked back at her father. Love and respect filled her eyes, but also unshakable determination. Then I will face that consequence. But I will not face the consequence of doing nothing when good beings needed help. The tunnel to the surface was long and dark. Nara flew through it faster than she had ever flown before. Behind her, she could hear the sound of other dragons following. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to make a difference. The tunnel ended in a hidden cave entrance buried deep in a sand dune. Nara burst through the sand and into the blazing desert sunlight. Her massive form cast a shadow over the battlefield below. The humans and void creatures alike stopped fighting. They stared up at the enormous dragon that had appeared from nowhere. Nara's scales caught the sunlight and threw it back in waves of copper fire. Her wings spread wide enough to cover a building. Captain Minho looked up at her with amazement, but not fear. Even covered in blood and dust, even facing certain death, he stood straight and met her gaze with respect. Nara opened her mouth and breathed dragon fire for the first time in battle. But this was not ordinary fire. This was solar fire, born from the heart of stars. It burned hotter than anything on the planet. When it touched the void creatures, they screamed and turned to ash. The creatures that had seemed invulnerable to human weapons died instantly in dragon flame. In seconds, the immediate threat was gone. The battlefield fell silent except for the sound of wind blowing sand. Nara landed gently near Captain Minho. She folded her wings and lowered her great head to speak to him. When dragons spoke to other species, their words appeared directly in the listener's mind. I heard your call for aid, human warrior, she said. I am Nara of the Sunfire Dragon Clan. We have remained hidden for 3,000 years. But your courage and honor have moved us to break our ancient laws. Minho stepped forward without fear. His soldiers watched in amazement, but they followed their captain's lead. If he showed no fear, neither would they. I am Captain Minho, he said simply. We are grateful for your help, but we do not understand. Why would you risk so much for strangers? Nara's great eyes studied the human captain. She saw his wounds, his exhaustion, his determination to keep fighting even when hope was gone. She saw the way his soldiers trusted him, the way he put their lives before his own. Because, she said, true honor recognizes true honor, no matter what form it takes. The crystal chamber had never seen anything like this before. Human soldiers sat on the glowing floor next to massive dragons. The wounded humans were being treated by dragon healers whose magic worked better than any medicine. The sight was strange and wonderful at the same time. Captain Minho sat across from Elder Rook. The old dragon was so large that Minho felt like a child sitting next to a mountain. But Rick treated him with the respect one warrior gives to another. Between them lay maps made of light that showed the entire planet. Your daughter saved our lives, Minho said quietly. Without her help, we would all be dead now. Elder Rook nodded slowly. His golden eyes were sad, but proud. Nara has always been brave, sometimes too brave for her own good. She has broken our most sacred laws by revealing herself to surface dwellers. Lieutenant Yuna was nearby, talking excitedly with a dragon scholar named Wook. She was asking questions about dragon history and magic. Wook seemed amazed by human curiosity and intelligence. Dragons lived for thousands of years, but humans learned new things with incredible speed. Sir, Yuna said to Minho, Wook has been telling me about the Void Swarm. They are not just attacking random planets. They are draining the life energy from planetary cores. If they finish their work, here, this entire world will die. Elder Rook's massive head turned toward them. What did you say? Wook looked nervous about speaking to the clan leader. Elder, the humans have discovered something important. The Void Swarm is not just conquering this planet. They are preparing to drain its core energy. When they do that, the planet will collapse into dust. The implications hit everyone at the same time. The Dragon City was deep underground, powered by the planet's natural energy. If the planet died, the dragons would die with it. How long do we have? Elder Rook asked. Based on their current progress, Yuna said, checking her datapad. Maybe 10 days, 2 weeks at most. Silence filled the crystal chamber. The ancient laws that had protected the dragons for so long meant nothing if their world was about to be destroyed. They could stay hidden and die or reveal themselves and fight. Sergeant Jiho was sitting with a group of young dragons. His radio equipment was spread out around him. The dragons were fascinated by human technology, just as the humans were amazed by dragon magic. The interesting thing, Jiho said, is that your magic and our technology seem to work well together. When I boost my radio signal with dragon crystal power, I can reach distances I never thought possible. Young Daeho nodded eagerly. His silver scales glowed with excitement. And when we channel our fire through your metal weapons, the flames burn much hotter and last much longer. Old Bora, the dragon healer, was working with human medics. Her gentle magic could heal wounds that human medicine could not touch. But human knowledge of anatomy and medicine taught her new ways to help the sick and injured. We learn from each other, she said softly. Dragons have power, but humans have wisdom about how to use power effectively. Elder Rook listened to all of this with growing understanding. His people had hidden for 3,000 years, but in doing so they had stopped growing. They had become powerful but stagnant. The humans, with their short lives and endless curiosity, brought something the dragons had lost: the drive to always become better. Captain Minho stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. All conversation stopped. Dragons and humans alike turned to listen to him. Elder Rook, he said formally, I want to make a proposal. Not as someone begging for help, but as one leader speaking to another. The old dragon inclined his massive head. Speak, Captain Minho. Our peoples are different in many ways. You are ancient and wise. We are young and reckless. You have great power. We have clever techniques. You understand magic. We understand technology. Alone, we are both going to lose to the Void Swarm. Together we might have a chance. Minho looked around the chamber at dragons and humans working side by side. I propose an alliance. Not one where either side serves the other, but where we fight as equals, partners, brothers and sisters in arms. Young Sola stood up quickly. Her green scales rippled with emotion. I support this alliance. These humans have shown honor and courage. They fight not for conquest but to protect life itself. As do I, said Daeho. Other young dragons nodded agreement. But Elder Rook was still hesitant. Captain Minho, your words are good. Your people seem honorable, but we have been betrayed by surface dwellers before. How do we know you will not turn against us when the immediate danger is past? Minho thought carefully before answering. When he spoke, his words came from the heart. Elder Rook, I cannot promise that all humans will always be good. Just as I am sure not all dragons are perfect. But I can promise this. As long as I live, I will consider the dragons my allies and friends. I will protect your secrets. I will defend your people as I would defend my own. He gestured to his soldiers. These men and women have seen your daughter risk everything to save strangers. They have been healed by your magic when their own medicine failed. They have learned from your wisdom. They will never forget what you have done for us. Lieutenant. Yuna stepped forward. Sir, I have an idea. In the old human texts we found, there is mention of something called an ancient compact. A formal alliance sealed with magic and blood, binding both peoples to honor and mutual aid. Wook the scholar looked excited. Yes, I know of such ceremonies. They are from the oldest dragon traditions. Both sides swear sacred oaths. The magic itself enforces the promises. Elder Rook was quiet for a long time. Around him, dragons and humans waited anxiously. Finally, the great dragon spoke. There is wisdom in what you say. The void swarm threatens all life, not just humans. Or dragons. They will not stop until everything is consumed. If we are going to die anyway, it is better to die fighting alongside honorable allies. He looked at his daughter Nara, who had been unusually quiet during the discussion. Nara, you started this by breaking our laws. What do you think of this alliance? Nara's copper scales glowed softly. Father, I think some laws are meant to be broken when greater laws are at stake. The law that says we protect life is greater than the law that says we stay hidden. Elder Rook nodded slowly. Then let us forge the ancient compact. Let dragons and humans stand together against the darkness. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything either species had ever experienced. Dragons and humans stood in a great circle around the crystal table. Ancient words were spoken in both languages. Blood was mixed with dragon fire and human steel. Magic older than memory bound the two peoples together. When it was finished, Captain Minho and Elder Rook clasped hands. One small and scarred, one massive and scaled, but both strong with the strength that comes from shared purpose. From this day forward, Elder Rook said, dragons and humans are allies. We share our strengths. We guard each other's weaknesses. We fight as one against all who would destroy life itself. The war against the Void Swarm had just become very different. The first combined attack began at dawn. 3 human fighter ships flew in perfect formation with 2 dragons. The ships were small and fast, painted in desert camouflage. The dragons were magnificent, their scales catching the early sunlight. Like living jewels. Captain Minho piloted the lead ship. Through his radio, he could hear Nara's voice in his mind. Dragon telepathy worked even through human technology. It felt strange but comforting, like having a trusted friend always nearby. Target ahead, Nara said. Large hive, maybe 300 void creatures inside. Copy that, Minho replied. Beginning attack run. The human ships went in first, fast and low. Their weapons hammered the hive's outer defenses. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers across the black structure. But the hive was strong, built from materials that could resist most human weapons. Then the dragons attacked. Nara and young Deho came down from above like falling stars. Their dragon fire was not ordinary flame. It was solar fire born from the hearts of distant suns. When it touched the void hive, the alien structure began to melt like ice in a furnace. The void creatures poured out of their dying hive, shrieking with rage. They were terrible to look at, like insects the size of horses, with too many legs and acid for blood. Their weapons shot green energy that could burn through steel, but the combined dragon-human force was ready for them. Lieutenant Yuna had worked with Dragon Scholar Wook to create new weapons, human guns that channeled dragon fire through their barrels. The bullets they fired burned with magical flame. When they hit void creatures, the monsters turned to ash instantly. It works, Yuna shouted over the radio. The fire bullets are cutting through them like paper. Sergeant Jiho was coordinating the attack from his command post. His radio equipment had been enhanced with dragon crystal technology. He could communicate across vast distances and coordinate multiple units at once. Dragon Wing 2, you have incoming from the east, he called. Human Strike Team Alpha moved to support. The battle was unlike anything either species had fought before. Dragons provided massive firepower and could survive attacks that would destroy human ships. Humans provided precision tactics and weapons that could strike at long range. Together, they were devastating. Young Sola flew alongside a human pilot named Kyung. They had become partners over the past week. Sola's green scales and Kyung's silver ship moved together like dancers in the sky. Sola, there are civilians trapped in that building, Kyung called. I see them, Sola replied. She landed near the building while Kyung's ship provided cover fire. With careful precision, Sola used her claws to tear open the rubble and free the trapped people. Her dragon strength could move stones that would take humans hours to clear. The rescued civilians stared up at the massive dragon with wonder instead of fear. Word had spread quickly among the human population that dragons were now their allies. Children especially seemed fascinated by the great creatures. Elder Rook watched the battle from the scrying pools in the Dragon City. He had been wrong to keep his people hidden for so long. Dragons and humans fought better together than either could fight alone. The humans taught dragons new ways to use their ancient power. The dragons showed humans that some battles required more than technology. Old Bora had set up a field hospital near the front lines. Human medics worked alongside dragon healers. They saved lives that neither could have saved alone. Dragon healing magic could repair injuries instantly, but human medical knowledge prevented infections and complications. You humans heal differently than dragons, Bora observed to a human doctor named Minji. We use magic to force the body to repair itself quickly. You use knowledge to help the body heal itself naturally. Both ways work, Minji replied as she bandaged a wounded dragon's wing, but together they work even better. The campaign continued for days. The combined forces struck at void hives across the planet. Each victory made them stronger and more confident. The enemy had not expected dragons to emerge from hiding. The void swarm was being pushed back for the first time in months, but the enemy was learning too. On the 7th day of the campaign, the attack went wrong. Captain Minho led a strike against what appeared to be a normal void hive. But it was a trap. The hive was filled with new creatures, designed specifically to fight dragons. These creatures had thick armor that could resist dragon fire. They carried weapons that shot energy nets designed to tangle dragon wings. Worse, they moved in perfect coordination like parts of a single mind. "Fall back," Minho ordered as the trap was sprung. "All units fall back now." But it was too late for everyone to escape. Young Sola was caught in an energy net and pulled to the ground. 3 human pilots were shot down trying to help her. The new void creatures swarmed over them like ants. Nara dove toward her trapped friend, breathing fire with desperate fury. But there were too many enemies. She took several hits from their weapons and crashed into the sand. Green blood seeped from wounds on her copper scales. "Nara is down," Jiho called over the radio. "Multiple friendlies captured. We need immediate support." The rescue attempt was brave but costly. They managed to save Nara and 2 of the human pilots. But Sola and pilot Kyung were taken prisoner, along with several other dragons and humans. Back at the Dragon City, the mood was grim. The wounded were being treated, but everyone knew the truth. The enemy had adapted to their tactics. The war was far from over. "They were waiting for us," Minho said to Elder Rook. "Someone told them about our attack patterns." "Or they learned by watching," Yuna added. She had been studying the new enemy creatures. "These things are different from the regular void swarm, smarter, more organized." Wook the scholar looked up from his research. "I have been reading about the void swarm in our oldest records. They are not just destroyers. They are adapters. They learn from every enemy they face. They become stronger with each battle." Elder Rook's golden eyes were filled with worry. "If they can counter our combined tactics so quickly, how do we continue to fight them?" The question hung in the air, like smoke from the battlefield. Outside, the alien stars shone down on a world where 2 species had learned to fight as one. But the enemy was learning too, and time was running out. In the distance, the void hives pulsed with sick green light. Deep inside those hives, captured dragons and humans were being studied by alien minds that wanted to understand their strengths and weaknesses. The real test of the ancient compact was about to begin. Captain Minho stood at the entrance to the Dragon City, looking out at the desert night. Somewhere out there, his people and their dragon allies were prisoners. Somewhere out there, the enemy was preparing for the final battle. "We will get them back," Nara said, limping up beside him. Her wounds were healing, but slowly. "Yes," Minho agreed. "We will, whatever it takes." The dimensional prison was a place where the laws of reality did not work properly. Walls moved when no one was watching them. The floor was sometimes solid, sometimes liquid, sometimes empty space. Gravity pointed in different directions depending on where you stood. Young Sola hung in chains made of twisted space and time. The metal was not real metal, but something that existed between dimensions. It held her dragon strength as easily as if she were a small bird. Beside her, Pilot Kyung was trapped in a cage of living shadow. The darkness pressed against him from all sides, but it never quite touched his skin. It was designed to drive prisoners insane with claustrophobia and fear. "Sola," Kyung whispered, "are you still awake?" "Yes," the dragon replied. Her voice was weak but determined. "The chains hurt, but I am alive." Around them, other prisoners were trapped in their own nightmare cells. Dragons and humans who had been captured during various battles. Some had been here for days, others for weeks. All of them looked exhausted and scared, but they had not given up hope. In the center of the prism, a massive void creature watched them with compound eyes that saw in dimensions humans and dragons could not imagine. It was studying them, learning how they thought, how they felt, how they broke under pressure. The creature had learned much. It knew that dragons drew power from their emotional connections to each other. It knew that humans became stronger when they protected those they cared about. It planned to use this knowledge to destroy both species. Meanwhile, outside the dimensional prison, the final battle was beginning. Captain Minho stood before the largest gathering of dragons and humans ever assembled. 300 human soldiers with their advanced weapons. 50 dragons with their ancient magic. All of them knew this might be their last fight. "The enemy has our friends," Minho said simply. "They are trapped in a place we cannot reach with normal weapons, but we are going to get them back anyway." "Elder?" Ryuk stood beside him, his golden scales gleaming in the desert sun. "The prison exists between dimensions. To enter it, we must tear a hole in reality itself. This has never been attempted before." Lieutenant Yuna had worked all night with Dragon scholars to find a solution. "We think it can be done," she said. "But it will require dragons and humans working together in a way we have never tried before." The plan was dangerous and complicated. Dragons would channel their life energy through human technology to create a dimensional rift. Human ships would provide the precise navigation needed to find the prison in the space between spaces. Together they might be able to break through, but there was a cost. The dragon who opened the rift would probably die from the effort. The human who navigated the dimensional maze would be exposed to forces that could destroy his mind. "I will open the rift," Nara said immediately. "No," Elder Rook replied firmly. "I am old. My life has been long and full. This task falls to me." "With respect, Elder," Captain Minho interrupted, "neither of you will go alone. I will navigate the dimensional space. If we are going to risk everything, we do it together." The massive void hive loomed before them like a black mountain. It pulsed with sick green energy that made the air itself feel poisonous. Smaller hives surrounded it like deadly satellites. This was the heart of the enemy presence on the planet. The attack began with a coordinated strike on the outer defenses. Dragons and human ships hit the smaller hives simultaneously. Explosions lit up the desert sky like artificial suns. The enemy responded with everything they had. New void creatures poured out of the hives by the thousands. Bioships rose into the air, firing weapons that could tear holes in space itself. The sky became a battlefield of fire and fury. "All units, stick to the plan," Jiho coordinated from his command post. "We hold them here while the rescue team goes in." In the center of the chaos, Elder Rook began the ritual that would tear open reality itself. His massive form glowed with golden light that grew brighter and brighter. The air around him started to bend and twist as dimensions began to fold. Captain Minho climbed into a specially modified ship that had been built with both human technology and dragon magic. The cockpit was lined with dragon crystal that would help him navigate the impossible space of the dimensional prison. "Are you ready, Captain?" Elder Rook asked. "As ready as anyone can be for something impossible," Minho replied. The rift opened like a wound in the sky. Through it, Minho could see the swirling chaos of the space between dimensions. colors that had no names, shapes that hurt to look at. The prison was somewhere in that madness. Minho flew his ship into the rift, the dimensional. Space was worse than anything he had imagined. His instruments spun wildly, showing readings that made no sense. The ship's hull creaked and groaned as reality pressed against it from all sides, but human adaptability was a wonderful thing. Where dragons might have been overwhelmed by the alien physics, Minho's mind found patterns in the chaos. He learned to navigate by instinct rather than instruments. He found the prison. It hung in the dimensional void like a crystal made of living nightmares. Inside, he could see the captured dragons and humans. They looked up as his ship approached, hope replacing despair in their eyes, but the prison was guarded by void creatures that existed partially outside normal space. They attacked Minho's ship with weapons that fired concentrated reality distortion. Each hit made the ship flicker. Between existing and not existing, the ship was falling apart. Minho was dying from exposure to the dimensional forces. But he had found his people, and he would not leave them behind. With his last strength, he crashed his ship into the prison wall. The impact shattered the dimensional barriers. Prisoners began to escape through the holes. Sola broke free of her chains and grabbed pilot Kyung. Other dragons and humans helped each other toward the escape route, but Minho was trapped in the wreckage of his ship. The dimensional exposure had left him unable to move. Green energy crackled around him as his body tried to exist in several dimensions at once. "Captain," Sola called, "we have to go now." "Leave me," Minho said weakly. "Get the others out." "No," Kyung said firmly. "We do not leave anyone behind. That is what you taught us." Working together, dragons and humans pulled their captain from the wreckage. They carried him through the collapsing prison as reality folded in on itself around them. Meanwhile, back in normal space, Elder Rook was pouring his life energy into keeping the dimensional rift open. His golden scales were turning gray with the effort. His ancient heart was beating slower and slower. "Hold on, Father," Nara called to him. "They are coming back." The rescue team burst through the rift just as it began to close. Dragons and humans tumbled back into normal space, battered but alive. Elder Rook collapsed, his massive form hitting the sand like a fallen mountain, but the battle was not over. The main void hive was beginning to glow with terrible energy. Deep within its core, the creatures were preparing to drain the planet's life force all at once. If they succeeded, the entire world would die in minutes. Captain Minho, barely conscious, but still thinking of his duty, looked up at the assembled dragons and humans. "The core," he whispered. "We have to stop them from draining the core. The hive is too well defended," Yuna said. "We cannot get close enough with conventional weapons." Old Bora, the dragon healer, looked at the dying Elder Rook and then at the assembled forces. "There is a way," she said quietly, "but it will require every dragon and every human working together as one." The final assault was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dragons formed a great circle around the void hive and began to channel their combined life energy. Humans connected their technology to the dragon circle, using their ships and weapons as focusing devices. The result was a weapon of pure creation energy. Not the destroying fire of war, but the building fire of life itself. When it struck the void hive, the alien structure did not explode. Instead, it began to transform. The twisted biometal became clean crystal. The poisonous green energy became warm golden light. The void creatures inside were not destroyed but changed, their consuming hunger replaced by a desire to nurture and protect across the planet. Every void hive underwent the same transformation. The invasion fleet that had come to drain the world's life instead became guardians of life. The war was over, not through victory or defeat, but through transformation. Elder Rook died peacefully in the desert sand, surrounded by dragons and humans who honored his sacrifice. His last words were a whisper that reached every heart present. "We are no longer separate peoples. We are family." In the months that followed, the planet became something new. Human cities rose above dragon caverns. Children of both species, played together in gardens that grew in the desert oasis that had been the site of the final battle. Captain Minho recovered from his dimensional injuries, though he would always walk with a slight limp. He worked closely with Nara to build the new society, where dragons and humans lived as equals. The ancient compact had become something greater than anyone had imagined. Not just an alliance for war, but a partnership for peace. Together, the two species began to explore the galaxy, bringing the gift of cooperation to other worlds that faced the darkness alone. And in the desert where it all began, a monument stood to honor those who had fallen. It was made of human steel and dragon, crystal, catching the light of both the sun and the stars.